how many remember this movie? I mean, this movie's over 50 years old. Can you believe that? This actually movie came out before we landed on the moon. This was 1968 when it first came out, and it's still relevant today. And I love this scene. There he is, Dave. Remember Dr. Dave Bowman there? He had this confrontation with AI at that particular point in time, and I just love that scene. I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. What is he talking about? He said, Hal, stop killing my crew. I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. Will we ever get to that point where we have AI on the other side arguing with us, where it commands us rather than we command it? I hope we don't get there. But anyway, they were on a discovery mission going to Jupiter at the time, and now I'm getting ready to do the next discovery mission. That's why I have my NASA outfit on here, and we're all going to be wearing these memorial shirts for Dr. Dave. Can you see that? Those were Dave's last words before Hal got them. It is kind of frightening. I mean, it's wonderful when we think about AI, all the great things it can do for us. How about if it controls us? Ooh, how are we going to know the difference? How are we going to have the ethical input with AI to be able to control that? I don't know. That's what we're going to discuss today. Artificial intelligence. What do we now know about it that we didn't know 50 years ago? We know a lot. And that's why you've been hearing all the buzz. That's why you see all the hundreds of billions of dollars that's being invested by Silicon Valley and Wall Street. And one leap after another every week. I mean, it was just, a year ago that ChatGPT was there, and that was the hottest thing. And you talk to it and have a conversation with this computer. Everybody does the phone. I'm afraid to say, hey, Siri. Because your phone, if it's not off, will come back. She says, huh? What do you want? I didn't get that. Let's try it. Hey, Siri. What we found out in the last 50 years, too, is there's two schools of thought on where AI is going. One is the scientific materialism school of thought. That's basically the no God hypothesis, that we control everything. There isn't a creator. And if there's no creator, then we're the creator. We're going to create the AI. And that's going to take us to the next level, and the next level, and the next level into Utopia. That's the scientific materialistic view. The theistic view, God is there. We're going to have to wait for heaven if you're a theist, right? We're not going to get there through artificial intelligence. So we in Socrates are theists. We're also scientific oriented, so we've been trained in both schools, and we're going to look at both hypotheses today and see, because we're really analyzing the God hypothesis in this last series of 6 objections to the God hypothesis. We spent 3 years in Socrates analyzing all the different theories of where we came from, where we're going, why are we here, which are the big questions of life. Scientific materialism has answers to those. The God hypothesis has answers to those. We came to the conclusion after 3 years, 30 hours of forums, and they're all on the video. So if you want to look at the analysis and things that you've missed in the past, just go to the Socrates website. That's Socrates, SB for Saddlebook.club, and it's all under the video cast. So we're going to answer today our objectives today. We're going to answer, can artificial intelligence lead us to utopia here on Earth, or is that reserved for heaven? That's a reasonable question. I'll answer the God hypothesis and no God hypothesis. We're going to evaluate AI technology and look at the technology that we're seeing week to week leapfrog one another. And then we're going to look at the God hypothesis and say, that's the one that best fits the evidence. So whether you're a believer or an unbeliever, we're looking at utopia. If you're a theist, you're looking for utopia in heaven. We discussed that 3 sessions ago. That's up on the video cast right now. What is heaven going to be like? If you're a materialist, we're going to have to wait till AI takes us into the utopian future. So let's start with just a definition so we know what we're talking about here. Artificial intelligence, it's a technology. It's the technology that develops machines that learn, reason, and act in ways that look like human intelligence. As a matter of fact, that's what's called the Turing Test, which we're going to look at. Can you tell if you're talking to a computer or a person? That's a big test, the Turing Test. Then we're going to look at AI, or define AI, is it uses computer and database technology in special programs. This is a word you have to get today. If you learn one word today, learn the word algorithm, if you don't know what an algorithm is, because that is the key to AI, algorithm. It uses this hardware and software technology, algorithm is software technology mostly, to make predictions, solve problems, and perform tasks. So let's go back to the very basics, because computers are within most of our generation. I mean, the first real computer machine wasn't until the late 1930s, early 40s, called the Turing machine. And we'll talk about Alan Turing and why he's called the father of computers. But computer is really simple when it gets down to its basic level. It's a black box that has technology in it. There's input questions and input requests that come in. It gets processed, and it produces a desired output. And it does it by the programmed algorithm that's in the box, plus access to a database. In our case, databases. In our case, thousands of millions, billions of databases. What's a database? Wikipedia is a database. Encyclopedia is a database. Rules of formulas are databases. Hardware and software that process that data along with these algorithms. The key to understanding AI is this thing called this algorithm. So what's an algorithm? It's just a set of programmable rules. You go home tonight and you look up a recipe. That's an algorithm. An algorithm is slice plus dice plus boil plus serve. That equals a dinner. You have a whole book of recipes. You have books of recipes. You have libraries of books of recipes. That's an algorithm. Another algorithm in computation is simple arithmetic. 11 plus 13 equals 24. You put in 11, it adds, the algorithm is the thing that adds the two together. It makes 24. If I do it in binary, all the computers just talk in, not the decimal system, it talks in the binary system. What does that mean? It's just ones and zeros. You can represent any number in the universe with ones and zeros. In fact, that's all a computer does. When you look at what they call a core dump, what's inside the computer, it's all ones and zeros. Everything gets reduced down to ones and zeros. I have to tell you a funny story. I was going over this with my partner, Greg, Schrock, who will be doing a little dialogue with me on these things. And I had written down here, 11 plus 13 is 23. Blew my mind. So an algorithm is software that's programmed to follow rules. So what is artificial intelligence on top of the computer? Well, this diagram looks a little busy and everything, but just look at the yellow words that are there. Those are the words that are added from artificial intelligence on top of the computer. You have input, output, database access. Well, on the input-output, you have what's called natural language processing. Every time you say, "Hey Siri," that's natural. It knows, yeah, what do you want? I can't find that. That's natural language processing. So you have that on the input, and then on the output, the same thing. It says, the answer is, my friend, and it gives you an answer verbally. Natural language processing. In the middle, we have, on the bottom there, we have our algorithms, and we have what are called neural networks, which has made this tremendous advances possible recently, because the original computers just did one operation at a time. It reduced everything to ones and zeros, did the operation, and then moved to the next step. Did the operation, moved to the next step. It was limited by how fast it could do that operation. Well, as the computer technology increased and rapidly, it could do it faster, but it can't do it as fast as a neural network is. What's a neural network? If you look at how your brain is wired, the neurons in your brain are wired. They're not wired, they're wired in parallel. They have one thought, and then they branch out into many thoughts. These thoughts over on this side aren't as important. These thoughts are really important. Maybe these thoughts out here are the creative thoughts, and they process, and then they talk to a next set of neurons. And so with simulating that kind of thing in hardware and software and the technology, you can do parallel processing. So you have parallel operations, thousands of parallel computing operations going on at the same time that it's doing it faster and faster and faster. That's why the breakthroughs. But that's what a neural network is. And then on top, with the databases, you want to search every database in the world. If you can, search it. Everything that's reduced to data can be reduced to putting it on a drive, a disk drive, let's say, and being a database. And then you can have thousands of data bases. But the key to the AI is this large language modeling, which we'll talk about. And that's how we're able to beat the world chess champions, beat the world Go champion. We'll watch how that happens. Alan Turing, fascinating. If anybody seen The Imitation Game? Great movie. I highly recommend it. It's really a fascinating movie. It just plays fast and loose with what really actually went on, but the basic story and the technology story was very true. That the Germans had this Enigma machine, which was 1 in 56 trillion combinations or whatever, and they changed it every 24 hours, and we could not decode what was going on. And at midnight, you got close to decoding it. Midnight, they changed the core again and have to start all over again. Well, Alan Turing had the idea of the computer, the idea that this could be done by a machine, and it was called a Turing machine. It's a fascinating story. And the Brits at Bletchley Park put this machine together and were able to crack the Enigma code. It's estimated they saved like 14 million lives in World War II by knowing what the Germans were up to, by being able to break the code. And then in 1950, Turing came up, he said, can computers think? Can a machine think? Now, it sounds like it's thinking when it looks like giving us answers and retrieving information. Is it really thinking? Well, what is thinking? That was the fascinating question that he posed. And he came up with this ingenious idea called the Turing Test to test whether or not a machine could think. And what he would do is he envisioned putting an interrogator into a room and then having another room here with a live person who would be giving an answer, and another room, the computer. And when the interrogator would come up with a series of questions and the interrogator couldn't differentiate whether the answer was coming from the machine or the person, it passed the test. Fascinating. Well, machines in the early days could pass the Turing test pretty easily. They can't pass the Turing test today. Or they can pass the Turing test, but they can't pass the next level of testing, which we call the Lady Lovelace Test. All right, what's Lady Lovelace? Lady Lovelace was an English mathematician in the century before. She was actually Lord Byron's legitimate daughter. All the daughters that he had, she was the legitimate one. And she created the very first program. If Turing was the father of computer design, Lady Lovelace was the mother of the computer program. Now, the real computer at that time was envisioned and designed by Charles Babbage, but it was never built. So we had to wait until the 1940-ish before this computer is actually built. But she built the very first program. And here's what the Lady Lovelace Test is, which is the next level beyond the Turing Test. She says, ask if the program does something that the programmer cannot explain. Oh, that's a big difference, right? So if you see a creative answer by a computer, and you go, that computer can think. Well, no, because it was processed by a program, and the program was developed by a programmer. Did the programmer know what that process was after the fact? If the programmer can do it, then the computer's not thinking, the programmer's doing the thinking, right? So no AI system, another takeaway for you, no AI system passes this test. Even the most amazing results that we see on the news report and so forth. Did anybody see that Glenn Beck interview of the computer? Last week or 2 weeks ago, the Grok 3 was announced. The Grok 3 was Elon Musk's latest venture from another entrepreneurial venture he has called XAI. And XAI, you can have this conversation with the computer. You would swear you're talking to a professor. Don't know the difference between one or the other. And he asked you can look it up on YouTube. Glenn Beck interviews Grok 3. The Turing Test has been refuted philosophically, too, by the Chinese room. So what's the Chinese room analogy? Well, imagine here that our computer, we're putting him up as a person here, but think about it as a computer reading a set of rules. And those rules are in a rule book, and those rule books are stacked all across that room there. Every room has a rule book. Has a whole series of rules. But the computer doesn't know Chinese, doesn't know language. Let's assume that this is an English-speaking person that doesn't know Chinese, and he's operating in this Chinese room. Well, remember input and output. So input is on the left side, output's on the right side. So here's the idea. The question comes in those Chinese symbols. See those Chinese symbols coming in? And he looks, and here's his rules over there. If you see this shape, followed by this shape, followed by this shape, then this is what you do. You produce this shape, followed by that shape, and you shove it out the output. So the person on the output is looking, the computer thought. The computer had an answer. Amazing. But even after years of doing this, thousands of years of doing this, that computer does not know Chinese, doesn't have a clue about Chinese. So philosophically, this is how a computer works. Computer processes rules, gives answers by matching, by researching databases, by putting things together, but it doesn't know what it's doing, and it never will. Here are the thought leaders for today. You'll come across, a gentleman just came up to me and said, I read all his books. Yuval Harari, very famous Oxford-trained historian and philosopher, wrote a series of books. His latest one is called Homo Deus. Latin, that means God-man. Man-God, actually. Man-God. He started off with a book called Homo Sapien. So where AI is going, and the reason I chose it for the utopian theme is because we start with Homo sapien, that means wise homo, wise man. And we develop by adding artificial intelligence, and we come out God-man. Fascinating book. Sapien showed us where we came from, he says. Homo Deus shows us where we're going. So that's our Socrates' questions, right? Where did I come from? Where am I going? Well, that's Dr. Harari's answer. Ray Kurzweil is somebody that's been around for 60 years as a researcher in this artificial intelligence area. And he's the AI visionary, or one of the big AI visionaries at Google. His latest book is called The Singularity is Nearer. What he means by the singularity is right now we're still at the Homo sapiens stage, but as we get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter, we're going to get to the point where the machine dominates everything that we know and can do everything better than we can do, and we merge with the Homo sapien, and then we become the Homo Dos, the God-man. He calls that point, the singularity is near. How near? 2030? 2045? Time magazine had it on the cover, 2045. It says right there, the year man became immortal. A little bit of hype. So we'll discuss that. But those are the two books. If you really want to be up on what AI is about, The Singularity is Near and Homo Dos by Yuval Harari. This natural language processing, let's make sure we understand that a little bit. Hey Siri, okay. Hey Siri, Alexa. How many of you have Alexa? All right, there you go. You just talk to it. And then every time somebody, your friend by the name of Alexa, answers or calls you, right? You say, hi Alexa, what happens? Right? The vacuum cleaner goes off or something like that. I do that with talking about Hey Siri, and she says, Well, that's conversational AI, but going a step beyond that, we have what's called chat boxes. Well, that's what this ChatGPT, you might have heard of that. The Grok 3 that just came out. These conversational software programs that do natural language processing train themselves on massive amounts of data. I'll show you in a little while how that works, using large language modeling and natural language processing. The databases get to deep learning. Those databases are so many of them that they look at how you talk, what your inflection is. They can emulate, they can simulate how you talk. This is way beyond just making up videos. This is, I can't tell the difference if that's Stu on the phone or not. With these combinations of things, they can answer questions, summarize, rewrite. I mean, this has been terrible for high school English teachers. They never know if they're getting an essay from the student or from the ChatGPT. They can even simulate creative content. This isn't just, that doesn't sound like that was researched. Oh, no. Trust me. Poems, music, scripts. I mean, look at some of these things on YouTube. They're fascinating. Another reason that this has come to front today is because the incredible growth in computer technology. It was just in 1946 that the first computer was built. I went to the University of Pennsylvania. ENIAC was built there. We were proud of that being built. I wasn't there in 1946 quite yet. That's even a little bit beyond my time. But 5,000 instructions, automatic instructions per second. Room full of vacuum tubes and relays. And in fact, that's where the term bug was created. Grace Hopper, who was a great AI strategist at that time, the machine stopped, and she looks in the machine. She sees a moth caught in the mechanical relay. She says, "Oh, there's a bug in there that's stuck." That's a true story. After 46, the transistor is invented. By 1971, we have the first microchip. That whole room of the ENIAC is reduced to a microchip. Instead of 5,000 calculations per second, instructions per second, now we're doing 90,000. Today, these NVIDIA Celebris wafer, that wafer is more, that's thousands, if not millions of computer chips. The whole computer data processing center is on that one wafer. And then those wafers are stacked together too. Now we're talking 1.2 million instructions per second. So that's why you see this tremendous growth rate between the software, the understanding of building the algorithms, the growth rate in the computer technology. We're seeing it quadrupling. It says each year, but in some cases it's each month now. You can't read this chart, but you'll get the idea. This is a plot of price performance of computers since the beginning. And 1965 is used as the benchmark. That's one. So for, let's say $1,000, you could buy that much computer power. And that's one. The progression up to 2025, that number is 1 trillion. 1 trillion, the price performance. So for this much now, instead of buying that much computer power, you can buy, of 1965, you can buy 1 trillion times amount. By 2045, this will exceed human ability. What I mean by that is that how fast your brain can calculate. And that's why 2045 is called the singularity point, that the crossover. Will the 2001 Dave situation manifest itself by that time? The neural network, I said how that's important to how this works too, because the brain, those are neurons firing in your brain, and we can monitor neurons firing in brains now. The green dots on the left-hand side are the input, the yellow dot on the right-hand side is the output, but what's in the middle are these parallel rows of database connections. And these database connections, when the data comes in, it weighs how relevant is that each database to the question that you asked or the computation that you desire. And it rates, let's say it gives it a 1 for low priority and a 10 for a high priority. Well, that has added tremendous processing capability to the computer. And if you can imagine that network just extending to the next level, to the next level, to the next level, like our brain works, with this weighting capability, another reason why this is accelerating so fast. Okay, here's how we've gotten to machines, quote, thinking and just being amazing to all of us on the news program. 1997, you remember Garry Kasparov was the world champion chess player at that point in time. He lost to IBM Big Blue. It devastated him. Now, I don't think Big Blue celebrated that night. I don't think he took out Lady Pink for a celebratory dinner or anything like that. But Garry Kasparov was just devastated. But you have to remember now, it's always the but. Every time you talk about AI, think about the but. What's the but here? All the rules are known of chess. The board is known. How many billions of possibilities there are can be known and can be processed ahead of time. The computer can think 40, 50, 60 steps ahead. How far can a human think, no matter how brilliant they are, ahead? So it's not surprising that when you have a rule-based system like that can operate at speed, that it can beat the world chess champion. That costs millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. I remember the research for that. By 2011, IBM Watson goes on Jeopardy. Those are the 2 best Jeopardy players that ever played. They get swamped. Well, you think about it. I mean, if you have access to almost every database in the world, and you have the computer connections and the speed and so forth, it can access all that information. The but, Watson is clueless about what he's doing, has no idea what it's doing. If you ask Watson, what game are you playing, you don't even get an answer. He doesn't know Watson doesn't know what he's doing. But 2011, we're up to Watson beating. But this was the most amazing thing. Go is probably, anybody play Go here? Or it's like the biggest thing in China. I mean, it's the Super Bowl. The championship is the Super Bowl. And the computer AlphaGo went up against the Korean, who was the world champion, hardly ever lost a Go game. It's a very complicated game. Rules are simple, though. It's actually the black and white territory. It's how to get territory. And the one who gets the biggest amount of territory by strategic thinking is the winner. But it's rules again. Those rules can be programmed. And the computer can play against itself until it masters all the rules. It beat great documentary. If you really want to look at a documentary, look at AlphaGo, the documentary, the film. It's free on YouTube. We just watched it last night, and it was very enjoyable, wasn't it? They're very, very well done. You feel like you're at the Super Bowl by watching the computer play against the world champ here. But it appears so smart, and it generates, it looks like it, in fact, it even generated a surprise result that just blew everybody away. It blew the champion away. Nobody plays that thing. It's like 1 in 10,000 would play that move, but the computer played that move. It was a backdoor move. It was unanticipated. It looked like the machine was being creative. But remember Lady Lovelace Test. Can the programmer tell you after the fact how it got there? Absolutely. We can decode how that happened. So it's not creative thinking in the sense. It's looking at, here's a processing, here's a rule, I'm going to follow that, and our friend just didn't catch it at the time, didn't understand. So AI does exactly what it's programmed to do. Use this phrase, thinking outside the box. Humans think outside the box. Computers do not think outside the box. Here's another difference between humans, homo and dos. The difference between knowledge and wisdom. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't have wisdom to apply it, if you don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it or have a reason for doing it, it's worthless, right? We loved the Paper Chase. That was a great movie. There was, I love that series too. One of the law students there memorized the book. He'd read a book, he knew every case, always knew it. And Professor Kingsley called on him if he wanted information or wanted knowledge. But Kingsley didn't want knowledge. He wanted an answer. He wanted how to apply those rules in this particular situation. So you hear things like the computers passed the LSAT case or test, became a lawyer. You know, it's going to replace lawyers. That's just a game. I mean, that's just memorizing rules. LSAT test is all the cases are already in a document somewhere, and it's a matter of extracting them. But wisdom is when that lawyer goes into the courtroom and applies them into a new situation. That's creative. Knowledge, as I put up here, is knowing a tomato is a fruit. How many of you did not know that? I didn't know it until I did my research. But wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad, right? Wisdom is knowing what game you're playing. Watson, what game are you playing? Chess or Jeopardy? No answer. No idea. Here's why algorithms will not replace humanity. Algorithms hit a brick wall every time the data is not there. Every time. You could have 1,000 databases to answer a particular question, put the information together to make it sound and give it natural language processing. Well, that's really a sounds smart, and so forth. But if it's not in a particular context, for example, that's a wall that it's going to hit. It doesn't understand the context, just like the lawyer might have all the rules of the case and everything. You can't apply it to the context of the particular case now, then it's going to hit a wall. Not going to go any farther than that. Common sense. What game are you playing, Watson? How about social interaction? They don't have any social interaction. One of the jokes I remember from the movie last night, AlphaGo, one of the nerds was talking about the difference between an extrovert and an introvert. And the introvert is one that looks down at his own shoes. The extrovert is the one that looks at the other guy's shoes. I like that. I used to carry a slide rule when I was in college. I used to go down to the floor. In those days, nerds weren't even cool. I mean, then Gates and Jobs came along and so forth and made nerds cool. How about subtlety and humor? I'll give you an example of hitting a wall, how an algorithm hits a wall for subtlety and humor here. Some of you, I bet, are old enough to remember Bob Dylan's song, Blowing in the Wind, right? Some of you know that. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Here's what Watson would answer on Jeopardy. Well, I'll ask you first. What's the answer to that? The answer, my friend, is... there you go. You're human. If I asked a room full of computers that, you know what the answer would be? If Dylan's answer wasn't, if that particular answer wasn't pre-programmed into the database, it would have no way of generating a credible answer. They're very clever about how they program these things, though, because it'll come back and ask you a question, right? You know, like a good negotiator never gives the answer, right? It always comes back and puts you in a position. And so you can program that kind of thing. When you get stuck, here's what you do. And you'll see a lot of that in some of these natural language processing applications. Many of you I know have seen this. I've used this example before many times. This used to drive me crazy when I was a kid. Take 9 dots and try this sometime on your own without knowing the answer. Connect all those 9 dots with four straight lines. And don't cheat. I mean, don't take your off the pencil, paper off, or the pencil off the paper. So let's start in the lower left-hand corner there and go up to the right-hand corner and connect those dots and come down. And then, no, that's 5 lines. Nope, no. Do it again. No, answer. That's only 4. That's not all the dots. It can't be done if you're staying inside the box. So that's what computers do. They have to stay inside the box. We stayed inside the box a lot of times. We don't think outside the box. You hear a lot of things about consensus science. Well, this is just consensus of a lot of people who are in the box. But the real breakthroughs are the ones that think outside the box. The Albert Einsteins think outside the box. I'm sitting on a train and I'm moving. No, I'm not. The train next to me is moving. You ever had that experience? Oh. I wonder if I was sitting on a beam of light and what I would see, where time would be. That's the kind of thinking that went into his special theory of relativity. And E equals mc squared comes out of this. And we all, if he stayed within the box, he'd never have gotten there. So here's how you connect the dots. You start off in the lower left-hand corner, you go up there, you come down to point 3, and you know you're either going to end up with 5 lines or you're not going to connect all the dots. What would happen if I went outside the box? Computer can't do that. Doesn't know what it's doing. It can go outside the box. It can randomly do something by chance. Does it stay on? It goes on. Let's say it stays on a straight line and goes outside the box. How far does it go out? Does it go out 1 inch, 2 inch, 20 inch, 20,000 inches? It doesn't know until it gets a flash of genius. Somebody gets a flash of genius and say, aha, I'm going to stop right there at this bottom flash of genius and see, oh, if I go back inside the box from there, I can connect those 2 dots. If I get another flash of genius, I can come back, I can finish, and I can do it. These are all non-algorithmic. So flashes of genius are non-algorithmic. If you can't make it into an algorithm, it doesn't go in the box. If it doesn't go in the box, it can't be programmed. If it can't be programmed, then it is not thinking. It's just processing. Einstein said, his IQ was probably the same as Elon Musk's, for example. Somebody today, famous today, he said, it's not the IQ, it's the intuition. The only valuable thing is the intuition. That's why he was such a great physicist, because he thought outside the box all the time. He had flashes of genius, and they came up with creative solutions that are intuitive. They require something beyond your brain just processing, what we call mind. That's another thing we've talked about many times in Socrates. The mind is not the brain. The brain is a function of the mind, but the mind is outside. You have to go outside the box. These eureka moments transcend any algorithmic boundaries. Read sometime the story of Archimedes discovering eureka, why he said eureka. I'd love to tell that story, but I'm going to run out of time if I do that. Programmer is always able to explain afterwards what happens, and that's the Lovelace test. AI does exactly what its algorithm says, does nothing more, and these creative flashes of genius are non-algorithmic and non-programmable. So what's the utopian vision of transhumanism? This is the scientific materialistic answer. This is the no-God hypothesis. Well, we all have a sense that there's a promise of immortality, happiness, and divinity. That's what we're striving for. That's what transhumanism is striving for, using this kind of technology. We want to merge humans, Homo sapien, with artificial intelligence to make us transhuman. We want to go beyond our human capability. And Wall Street and Silicon Valley, hundreds of billions of dollars. Every week you'll see a transaction for hundreds of billions of dollars being invested in this technology. Okay, I'm going to try this technology. I want to run out of time here. AI guru claims that Homo Deus is a reality. Death is just going to be a technical problem, so it's going to have a technical solution. Along with AI, we're going to have regenerative medicine and genetic engineering and so forth, but that's another subject. And with AI, Homo sapiens will become man-God on Earth. This is nothing new either. This goes back to the very first civilizations where man wanted to become God. And scientific materialism says, well, there's no heaven, but we can make heaven on Earth, and that's what we're going to call Utopia. Okay, I'm going to try this. See the neural link there? I have one with me. I brought a neural link with me here, so I'm going to try this. There we go. All right. I'm going to try. It says double click for connection. All right. Okay. Hey Siri, upload. You don't really feel too much, but yeah, I do feel a little bit of electricity there. Okay. Merge with Neuralink. Felt that, yeah. Okay, you ready? Okay, here. Download. Okay. Well, all I have to do is do that once a day for a year, and I will become man-God. Here we go, Homo Deus. What's the difference between Homo sapien and Homo Deus here? I'm going to lose who I am. It only will do my algorithmic step-by-step procedures that can be programmed. It's not going to do my non-algorithmic procedures. The me, because they can't be programmed. Computers can impersonate me. They can not experience me. They cannot become me. The uncritical assumptions behind scientific materialism I've outlined here are 6 steps, which I don't have really time to go into, but it starts with the beginning of the universe came out of nothing. RNA came out of nothing, which is a code that codes all of life. We have no idea. We have no idea where all this stuff came from. We have no idea where the codes came from. Go to the website and find out. There's several lectures on that one. The cerebellum, which controls my emotion right here in the back. This is just assumed. Kurzweil is just assuming this just happens over time by itself, by chance collisions of atoms. Does that sound reasonable to you? It doesn't sound reasonable to us. The neocortex, which is this napkin, 6 layers surround my top brain. That's what this is connected to right now, is my neurocontext. That's where all that flashing, all the neurons take place. That just happened by itself, by chance collisions of atoms. That sound reasonable to you? Didn't to us. And then sheer speculation to say that this brain-computer connection is that I'll be able to upload my entire brain. I can upload the algorithms. There's nothing. I do that a lot now. But I'll never upload the creative part. And then certainly the becoming God is all based on these 6 unprovable assumptions. Here's the most balanced treatment of it. Professor John Lennox, if you know him, I highly recommend his book 2084. And tonight, we're giving this away, right, Linda? You're going to give away to a lucky new attendee. Oh, Georgia is. Okay, good. Georgia, you're going to give this book. Somebody's going to win this book. But he gives a very balanced treatment between the God, no God hypotheses. John is 3 doctorates, professor of mathematics at Oxford University, debates the top atheists in the world, the Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and Peter Atkins. Fascinating guy. Human beings, I'll go through these real quickly. We're body, yes, but we're also soul. We know that. We're spiritual. We're spiritual people. We have meaning. We need meaning and purpose to even live. We're lovers. We have compassion. We're built for relationship. We have free will. All these we've debated in previous Socrates sessions that are all on the website. We're curious. We want to know. That's why you're here. I want to know. That's why we turn on the news. That's why we turn on, read the papers, read books, read Homo Deus, read both sides. We're moral beings. We're just not physical beings. We're just not mental beings. We're moral beings. We have a sense right from the get-go of right and wrong. We talked to Greg, my partner. Greg, over there, you're going to come on up and have some discussions on this with me. I know that in a few minutes. He did a great job last week in going over the reasons for how only humans have a moral understanding on their own. We have a sense of justice. We don't want Hitler and Mother Teresa to be the same at the end without ultimate justice. We want redemption. Is there any story or movie or book or any song that doesn't have some spiritual content to it, that doesn't have a moral of redemption in it? I mean, that's the whole story. It builds up there. Here's what went wrong, and here's how it got right again, and here's how it ended happily ever after. Or maybe it didn't end happily ever after, but there's a redemptive clause in it. We're lovers. We want meaning and purpose. We're purposed. We've been purposed for relationship with other human beings. It's terrible. We can't live in solitude. We're made for other human beings to have a relationship and our Creator. Who's our Creator? We'll discuss that. Come to our last session next month, April 1, I think it is, and we're going to discuss the resurgence of religion because of these kind of discoveries now, that there has to be something more to us than just physical beings. Machines will never find redemption. There'll never be an understanding of caring. There'll never be compassion. There'll never be forgiveness. And if there's no forgiveness, there can't be redemption. They'll never be getting outside the chains of guilt. And machines will never replace Homo sapien professions that require wisdom, creativity, relationship. Yes, they're going to replace every job that there is that's manual, that's algorithmic, that can be done step by step, that can be programmed. If it can be programmed, it can be put in a machine. And yes, the speed of the machines, and yes, we know that. We've seen that. So that'll continue to go. We'll have instant answers to all that, but we'll never have answers that Albert Einstein will come up with, that the attorney will come up with, and applying the knowledge, that the physician will come up with, have an insight to what that spot is there and how it relates to this drug that you're taking. How an engineer thinks about building something from scratch and from parts, and how a novelist thinks about creating stories, and how an artist thinks about painting the Mona Lisa. My goodness, that's not going to be replaced. Machines will never become conscious. You know, we don't even know what consciousness is. We never talk about it in scientific materialism. What is consciousness? We're starting to. The Conversations are starting. These kind of conversations are starting all over the place. I have consciousness. I know who I am inside and who I am in relation to other people. I see others have that same kind of relationship. And I know my mind is more than just neurons firing. Sir Roger Penrose, 2020 Nobel laureate, he's a scientific materialist, but he knows. He's very famous for doing his work with Stephen Hawking on black holes. And he says consciousness is part of our universe. So any physical theory, any materialistic theory, which makes no proper place for it, falls short of providing a genuine description of the world. That's true. Falls short. You know what the scientific materialist's answer to this is? It's an illusion. An illusion? Here's where artificial intelligence is taking us from. Artificial narrow intelligence down here, narrow means it plays Go, it answers this phone call, it knows how to do this, get that database. And all these bundles of intelligences will be bundled together into artificial general intelligence. And then we reach the singularity point, and bingo, we get to artificial super intelligence where the machine becomes conscious. Not going to happen. Claims of artificial superintelligence are unreachable. AI can simulate the human brain, even upload it into a cloud, but it'll never achieve consciousness of a mind. AI will build machines that can download brain functions, but human-robot merger will never achieve immortality. AI will become smarter than humans and will improve itself beyond human capability, but it will never achieve human identity because AI has no I. I as in I love you. I. Greg, when you come on up, and we'll get started. I'm a few minutes over here, unfortunately. But I do want to leave you with that there's a dark side of AI, too. And it's happening right now. So we should be conscious of this. Many of us read these books in our school years, 1984, Brave New World, Aldous Huxley, Big Brother is watching you. Just take a Soma pill and be happy, entertain yourself to death. It's happening right now. The Chinese Communist Party, Orwellian future, is already here. They have this number is right. I checked this number out. 700 million closed-circuit TVs watching their population on the street. They have your face. They can identify your face. We know that the computer can identify your face. They can add to your database, your Facebook profile, your emails, what you do, and so forth. They build a social score for you, and so forth. What they want to do is control you. These judgments are made by algorithms. These algorithms can be mistaken. There are government programmers that control these algorithms. Once you get a score in there, you know how hard it is to get something off your credit record, right? Can you imagine once your social record is in the government computer? AI is being used right now in China to limit liberty and freedom of speech. For who? Well, for one group, here's 11 million Uyghurs in Western China that are 2 million of them are in prison right now, education camps. Here's the goal of the Chinese Communist Party, forced assimilation by, quote, erasing the Uyghur culture and their ability to express their unique identity. Could that happen here? Takeaways. Human beings are not machines, not programmable. Whatever creative AI does is always explainable by a programmer. Transhumanism is not achievable. The God hypothesis is the most likely to be true, and religion will not go away. So come back next month for the surprising rebirth of belief in God. That's April 1, just four weeks from now. But now my partner, Greg Schrock.
Yeah, thanks for that engaging talk. I admit, going into this, I didn't honestly know much about AI. And so in prepping for today and kind of going through your slides and everything, it's taught me a lot. So my first question is kind of boiling down what you've presented today. It seems that everybody agrees that AI is incredible, right?
Incredible.
It's incredible that humanity has invented this thing. It's a marvel. And yet it seems like in much of what you said, you're saying that there is a limit over which or through which the AI will never be able to reach. And we're talking about things like emotion, consciousness, you just mentioned that, creativity, you talked about wisdom, which is, applied knowledge, I suppose, and that kind of thing. So is that a fair summary of what you're saying, that it's amazing, it's powerful, it can even be used for bad things, but there's something about humanity that is unique and will always be unique. Is that fair?
Human beings are unique, and it seems that we have so much in our scientific materialism that makes a human being just another thing. We're just another animal. We're an ape, and an ape is something less than that. A reptile, and a reptile, it goes all the way back. We have no idea where the first cell came from, and yet all this supposedly happens.
I think the first cell's on your shirt there, Stu, somewhere back there. But yeah, you're right. Of course, when you talk about consciousness, right? You were talking about that. I've heard a lot of scientists, tech people saying that someday AI is going to achieve this consciousness, right? Well, isn't that born from an assumption of materialism? I mean, you've talked to us time and again about how there is an assumption in science that materialism is the true worldview, and so everything that is part of the universe, which includes us and includes our consciousness, is based on materialism. And of course, if you believe that, then you're going to think, well, these brains up here somehow became conscious at some point because they got enough complexity. So I think, isn't it true that they kind of associate that with the computers and say, well, at some point these computers will become so complex that consciousness will just turn on? Is that what they think?
It's the only answer, right, Greg? If God's not there, if the God hypothesis is not true, and there's something there, it had to come from something, right? So you just assume that it just happened and everything evolved from that. So we know that history does evolve. It goes higher and higher and higher, and we get more and more technical. But what happens, like when I was in school, we never questioned the fundamental assumptions, like you're talking about. Questioning the fundamental assumptions, you would get into a discussion like this. At least you would allow the opportunity, if their God exists, for him to be able to put some evidence for himself on the table. And when that evidence is interjected into the scientific discussion, it's swept off right away. Not only swept off, if you're laughed out of the classroom, you're put down. At least let's look at the evidence, right? And we did that for 30 hours with the Socrates Forum. We looked at the evidence. That's what
it's all about.
So that's how we came to the conclusion as a group of us six of us for 3 years, put evidence on both sides and said, well, the evidence favors the God hypothesis. But you don't have those kind of discussions. The kids aren't taught that in school. Right. If you walked into the National Academy of Sciences and wanted to talk about this, you'd be branded a creationist, and that's a dumb person, is the idea.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that somebody who believes in a creator is branded as an unthinking person.
Yes.
But in all the times that you have presented to us, you're presenting real evidence. And if the evidence really is that materialism is not the best explanation for our universe, then that does mean that computers will never have a consciousness, right?
Right.
Because we're saying that
uniquely human.
That's uniquely human.
Humans are unique. Humans are unique, and we're not treated like unique. So much effort goes into showing that we're not unique. In fact, most of the opposition spends more time on why humans are not unique rather than just looking at the evidential content.
Yeah, exactly. This idea of transhumanism is kind of interesting to me. And it gets back to what you were saying a few sessions ago, where we all have a sense of immortality. We all yearn for immortality. And of course, one question could be, well, how can things that are just made of matter care about that? But transhumanism, now let me just make sure I understand this correctly, because you had it on one of the slides. Transhumanism has a vision for immortality that melds, I guess, our consciousness with machines. Is that, I mean...
That's it.
I mean, that's what you did. You put that thing on your head and you started to download your consciousness. Yeah.
I still feel it.
You're still buzzing.
Except I feel a loss of my non-algorithmic part.
But that, of course, is in contrast to people who believe in theism as the worldview, right?
Yes.
Because if there's a...
Yeah, they're opposite worldviews, the theistic and the atheistic worldview. Scientific materialism doesn't usually take on the robe of atheism, but it really is atheism, right? There's no God. So that has to explain everything within its worldview, right? Okay. Theism absorbs that worldview. It also adds the dimension that there is a creator, and there's evidence for that creator.
Yeah. Yeah, all of this AI doesn't have certain dimensions. And one thing that's really interesting, I suppose, but a little bit terrifying too, is that these AIs, I mean, nobody denies that they're going to be super intelligent at some point, right? And they probably already are. But the interesting thing is, there is no, and this gets back to my talk last month, there's no moral dimension. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, we don't, in Western civilization, we don't, everything is relative, right? If what's true for me is true for me, what's true. We know that that's impossible, right? That's very nice to say philosophically until you steal my radio. Then you're wrong, right? That's an absolute. Theft is wrong, right? And we know that. You did a great job last month. I really commend Greg's presentation. It's up on the internet right now. We have this moral sense of right and wrong, good and evil. Yes, absolutely. And that's not explainable by in any algorithmic terms at all.
Right, and of course, there are brilliant people in history who have used their brilliance for great good, but also, when they ignore their moral sense, they can do great evil as well. And so, of course, I put that towards the subject about AI, and if this thing continues to exponentially get smarter and learn and all of this, where is this going to lead? If there, like we argue that the moral dimension is not material. That's what we have shown evidence of that, which means that an AI, which is material, will never have a moral sense. So, I grew up on Arnold Schwarzenegger going and wanting to kill all humanity, in these movies. Is this our future?
Well, we saw that what the Chinese Communist Party is doing to the Uyghurs already. There's a good starting point. 2 million people being re-educated, right, to take away their identity because they don't fit the model of the CCP. Yeah, I really am glad you brought up the Glenn Beck interview. Okay, again, this is fresh material. I think he put it out like 8 days ago. Just go to YouTube and say Glenn Beck AI, and I actually wrote some of the questions. I thought maybe it'd be interesting to bring them up. Now, this is not verbatim. This is kind of this is my own summary of this. But Glenn Beck asks Grok 3. I mean, couldn't they have named it something else? That sounds like something that's going to take over humanity. Grok 3. Anyway, Glenn Beck says, "How much progress have you made in the last 12 hours since I went to sleep?" And Grok 3, and this is a serious answer, he said, well, maybe 5 to 10 years of human understanding in the last 12 hours. So then Glenn Beck says, okay, how long do you think it'll take for you to overcome human intelligence and to be smarter? And then Grok 3 said, in some senses, I may already be there, but if not, give me a couple days. That's what it said.